Here. It looks like we are live. Greetings to everyone that is here and that everyone that is going to be here. And if you're watching this later on as a video, because I just went live and there's nobody here yet, but there will be soon. And yeah, we're just going to go ahead and do this sort of stream. By the way, you could see Frodo behind me. Not there. Yeah. There's Frodo. Used to have a Legolas, but not anymore. But those were those little figurines were associated with the Ralph Bakshi film, the Lord of the Rings in 1970. 1978, I want to say. I'm not sure. I think it was 1978, the Ralph Bakshi film. Ralph Bakshi, by the way, great guy. Hey, Coyote, how are you doing? I don't know if on your end if it shows the hey Laurel. I don't know if it shows the chat on the screen or anything like that. This is my first time. It's not my first time doing a stream from my phone, but it is my first time doing a stream to YouTube on my phone. I've done this before on Twitch, but never on YouTube. I don't currently know if I have the ability to do both simultaneously. Hey, Sittins for Sithis, how's it going? I'm sitting here. I'm on my bed. I'm not in my desk because that would get tiresome holding up the phone there. And I have all the books with me here that you can see, so we can do readings and such. The history of Middle Earth there, and the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, and the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales, and the Great Tales, and some other goodies there. But welcome in everybody. Obviously, if you are here and you are not knowing why I'm streaming from my phone, and you're wondering, well, what the heck? Why are you streaming from your phone? Where's Matt? Where's Sid? Why isn't this the Council of Tolkien? So I'm going to explain again. I explained yesterday, but we may have people coming in here today that weren't here yesterday, especially since yesterday I streamed during the afternoon, which was an impromptu sort of stream, and that was, hey, Will, how's it go? Will, I owe you a reading. I owe you a reading. Don't let me forget that, okay? And I see Walter in there. Hi, Walter. Walter's my one of my Twitch moderators there. Can you guys let me know on the video, does it show the chat on the screen or not? I don't know if that's a thing or not. It should. I see it. I don't know if you guys see it. I mean, it does. I guess suppose it doesn't matter because when this plays back, I guess it does play the chat back. Oh, did I listen to the George R. R. Martin versus J.R.R. Tolkien epic rap battle? Yes, and as a matter of fact, I've quoted it a few times on Quora, specifically the line that Tolkien said to George R. R. Martin when he said, "The genre is called fantasy. It's meant to be unrealistic." So yeah, I usually trot that out sometimes with screenshots from the video. I'm very fond of epic rap battles of history. And I think they did a really good job with getting a guy who looked like Tolkien and sounded like Tolkien as well. So let me tell the story. I'm going to tell an abbreviated version of it for anybody who doesn't know what's going on. But my PC has stopped working, and this has been a problem for. Hold on, message held for review. It actually. Well, maybe because you spelled it wrong, but it actually censored myopic. We'll just. Another moderator just handled this, it tells me. Okay. Yeah, it's myopic, not myopic, referring to, I suppose, to George R. R. Martin's poor eyesight because he wears glasses, although I might take umbrage with that as a gentleman with glasses myself. But there were a few good lines in there, Like I said, I do like epic rap battles of history, and I watch them even if I don't know who the characters are. Usually, I know at least one of the characters, but yeah. English is not the first language. That's fine. Myopic is referring to somebody with poor eyesight. So my PC stopped functioning, and this has been a problem that has been happening and growing for some time. And essentially, um, I had issues with the GPU, which is the graphics processing unit, which is what allows you to see things, to have a display. It's the most expensive part in the computer, and the computer is about 6 years old, just a shade under 6 years old. I got it in let's see, I think I got it in November, so it would be 6 years old in November. And the person who built it was a former friend of mine from the East Coast. Well, I'm on the East Coast, but I knew two friends, both of them ladies, that are really very, very adept at building computers and fixing computers. And my friend Corin on the West Coast, and then this person, and I chose her because she was closer, and I figured, oh, there'd be less, what do you call it, shipping costs, and I would get it faster and whatnot. But anyway, yeah, I'm not going to go through all the details of every problem I ever had with the computer because I talked about that yesterday. But the graphics unit has always been sort of a problem. And I replaced it, or I should say, I upgraded it recently. I bought getting advice from my friend Corin, I bought a new graphics unit and I put it in. And I don't know if it was just something that I possibly did wrong, or if there were other issues going on and it was all coincidental, but everything just stopped working. So, I hired a kid to come here and fix it for me, and he did his best. He did not charge me a lot of money. He got it running, but it still would randomly crash on me. And it happened a lot of times while I was streaming, which is why yesterday's stream ended abruptly. Uh, and I did warn everybody that yesterday's stream may end abruptly, and that if it did end abruptly, that was why. That being said, I haven't gotten it to turn on ever since. It just won't work. And but that's beside the point, because I think at this point we just need a new computer. Now, Corinne told me that she would build me a new computer and that we could just use the graphics unit that I already purchased on Amazon for it. So I have to crowdfund. And so I have a GoFundMe, which I believe that in the description of this live stream, there should be a link to my GoFundMe, and there should as well be a link to my PayPal. Otherwise, Walter will also put those in the chat for you. Ride of the Rohirrim, Book 5, Chapter 1. Of course, yes. All right, I'll read that for you, Will. Will donated yesterday via PayPal, and I think had to leave before I got to read for them, so I did not get to do that. I'll pull out the two towers for you right now. Actually, that's the Return of the King. Yeah, there's the Return of the King. Okay, Book 5, you said. Yep. Let's put that back. Okay, so I'll get that in just a little bit. That's an excellent choice, one of my favorite parts to read. Um, but yeah, we have both a GoFundMe and we have a PayPal. And if you donate during stream, I will do a reading for you of anything you want. And if you can contribute anything, no amount is too small. We've had some very generous donations, very close to the goal, as you'll see there. And you can go through either PayPal, or you could go through GoFundMe if you prefer that. I did not get the chance to write new quizzes today. I watched a movie and I finished setting up the last parts of the GoFundMe, such as hooking it up to my bank account and whatnot. On Bilbo's speech, I think I was talking about Bilbo's speech when the stream crashed, or I should say my PC crashed last night. What movie did I watched? A movie called Doctor Sleep. I'd already seen it, but I wanted to see it again, and it's a fun movie with Ewan McGregor, and I don't really know any of the other actors that were in. Oh, no, I do know. Rebecca Ferguson was in it as well. Okay, hello there, Chain. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and I'm gonna have to put you guys down for a moment, so just enjoy looking at the ceiling for a moment when I get the Ride of the Rohirrim ready. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and you wanted the. I'm gonna have to put you guys down for a moment, so just enjoy looking at the ceiling for a moment when I get the Ride of the Rohirrim ready. Okay, hello there, Chain. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and you wanted the. I'm gonna have to put you guys down for a moment, so just enjoy looking at the ceiling for a moment which you said, book 5. Oh, just a little past that. Siege of Gondor, Ride of the Rohirrim. You really want the end of the chapter. Okay. Doing this all one-handed is, Hello there, Iced Out Mayo. How's it going? All right, we're fundraising today. If you have questions about Tolkien, I'll answer your questions. We'll do some readings. We'll just have some fun. You've seen all of the Hobbit films extended today as a comfort movie. What did you think? Because not such a fan of the Hobbit trilogy. The first one was good though. The Unexpected Journey, uh, that was good. After that, not so much. I had a hard time. I had a hard time. Hey, Flower, how's it going? I had a hard time sitting through the desolation of Smaug. I had like the E Honda 100 hand face palm going the whole time. The GoFundMe link should be in the description. Or Walter, if you can put that in the chat, that would help out as well. Well, it's fine if you like them. That's great. I mean, movies are meant to be enjoyed. I think what bothered me was how very long it was. You know, I didn't mind that the fact that they changed things. The Lord of the Rings changed things, um, but it was so long. And The Hobbit is something. How would you get the link from the Discord? Well, just scroll up to when I posted it last night, and you can get it from there. Or like I said, it should be in the description of the live as well. Wait, hold on. Let me see if I can maybe grab it. They should have made Guillermo del Toro make it. Well, he was going to make it, but he wound up quitting for, I believe, some sort of family crisis. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, Walter just linked there to GoFundMe, and you did get it. Yes. I mean, you cut off the P in PayPal, but I don't. I think people know that says PayPal instead of APAL. That's no big deal there. You got it. And let's see if I can pin that. Can I do that? Yeah. All right. There we go. We just pinned that. So now the link should appear at the top of chat for the entirety of the live stream. But The Hobbit, it's a short book, and it really should have been Bilbo's story. So doing a lot of stuff that was about Gandalf and Saruman and Galadriel, especially Saruman and Galadriel are not characters in The Hobbit. It was cool to see them, but and the thing they did to Radagast was, well, I enjoyed the fact that they included Radagast, but I would have wished to have gotten a more respectful version of him. So, but the problem is, and I don't know if you know this, Sithis, but I have a disc. I'm not sure what you mean, disc. Uh, but anyway, oh heck, what was I saying about? I was talking about Radagast and oh, I don't remember. Oh, Discord, yes. If anybody's on the Discord that can generate a invite, if you could put that in there as well. Oh, about Guillermo del Toro, that's what it was. Most of the ideas that were present in The Hobbit that were changes from the original narrative were actually Guillermo del Toro's ideas. Peter Jackson's main contribution to that trilogy was that he made it 3 films instead of 2. And that was not even his idea. That was Warner Brothers who insisted that they wanted another trilogy. It could have been a single 3-hour movie. I would have preferred to that it focused only on Bilbo. Sylvester McCoy was actually going to be. That was actually Peter Jackson's choice to play Gandalf originally, and the studio told him we wanted a bigger name, so that's when they started talking to. I believe the first choice for Gandalf was actually Christopher Lee, but he was too old really to do the physical aspects of the Gandalf role. And then they started talking to some other actors. I know that they asked Patrick Stewart, and he declined. and they asked another actor who declined. I'm trying to remember who it was. Darn. I know that, like I said, I know Patrick Stewart declined it. I'm trying to remember the other actor who said he didn't want to be in the movie. Yep, there's the Discord invite. Thank you very much, Walter. You're the MVP right now. Does anybody know? I can't think of it. It was like there were two actors that turned it down. One was Peter. One was Patrick Stewart because he didn't really like the Lord of the Rings, and the other Sean Connery. I just remembered they asked Sean Connery and he said no as well, which is interesting because when I was young, when I was a teenager and I was reading the Lord of the Rings, I sort of imagined Sean Connery as Gandalf, but having seen Ian McKellen in the role, I think that he's the guy. So I'm going to get to your reading, Will. I promise. I have the book open to the page that I'm going to start from. I just wanted to finish to tell you about the schedule and whatnot. Lindsay Ellis made a great video about this. Yes, she did. Yes. He said, "What's a Hobbit?" Actually, it's an interesting story with Sean Connery specifically. His reasoning for turning down the film was that he couldn't understand the script. He read the script and he said it was incomprehensible to him. He couldn't quite understand it, and of course he regretted it when these films turned out to be really good and really big. What happened was, hold on a second. Laurel, thank you very much. I see your donation. Thank you so much for that. You want to hear The Cottage of Lost Play? Could you direct me to that? I'm not sure. I'm a little. My brain isn't working at full capacity today, so just tell me which book to grab, and I'll grab it. But anyway, I was saying about Sean Connery. Yeah, he regretted not doing The Lord of the Rings, and he said that the next time he gets a script that he doesn't understand, that he would take the film, because obviously his instinct was incorrect on The Lord of the Rings. Unfortunately, the next script that he got that he couldn't understand was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which was not a very good film and a big box office failure. So there you have it. You can't join the Discord on your mobile. You don't know why. Sithis, what is it telling you? What is the message that you're getting? If you see, this would be easier to do from a computer. All right, let me do Will's reading, and then we'll figure out Laurel. Let's see. So, Ride of the Rohirrim. Let's do this. It was night. On either side of the road, the host of Rohan was moving silently. Now the road, passing about the skirts of Mindorluin, turned southward. Far away and almost straight ahead, there was a red glow under the black sky, and the sides of the great mountain loomed dark against it. They were drawing near the Ramus of Pelennor, but the day was not yet come. The king rode in the midst of the leading company, his household men about him. Elfhelm's Ered came next, and now Merry noticed that Dernhelm had left his place, and in the darkness was moving steadily forward, until at last he was riding just rear of the king's guard. There came a check. Merry heard voices in front, speaking softly. Oft riders had come back who had ventured forward almost to the wall. They came to the king. There are great fires, lord, said one. The city is all set about with flame, and the field is full of foes. But all seem drawn off to the assault. As well as we could guess, there are few left upon the outwall, and they are heedless, busy in destruction. Do you remember the wild man's words, lord? Said another. I live upon the open wold in days of peace. Widfara is my name. And to me also the air brings messages. Already the wind is turning. There comes a breath out of the south. There is a sea tang to it, faint though it be. The morning will bring new things. Above the wreck it will be dawn when you pass the wall. If you speak truly, Wilfara, then you may live beyond this day in years of blessedness, said Theoden. He turned to the men of his household who were near, and he spoke now in a clear voice. so that many also of the riders of the first Aered heard him. Now is the hour come, riders of the mark, sons of Eol. Foes and fire are before you, and your homes far behind. Yet though you fight upon an alien field, the glory that you reap there shall be your own forever. Oaths ye have kept, now fulfill them all to lord and land and league of friendship. Men clashed spear upon shield. Eomer, my son, you lead the first Aered, said Theoden, and it shall go behind the king's banner in the centre. Elfhelm, lead your company to the right when we pass the wall, and Grimbold shall lead his toward the left. Let the other companies behind follow these three that lead, and they also have, as they have chance, strike wherever the enemy gathers. Other plans we cannot make, for we know not yet how things stand upon the field. Forth now, and fear no darkness. The leading company rode off as swiftly as they could, for it was still deep dark, whatever change Whitfara might forebode. Merry was riding behind Dernhelm, clutching with the left hand, while with the other he tried to loosen his sword in its sheath. He felt now bitterly the truth of the old king's words. In such a battle, what would you do, Meriadoc? Just this, he thought, encumber a rider and hope at best to stay in my seat and not be pounded to death by galloping hoofs. It was no more than a league to where the outwalls had stood. They soon reached them, too soon for Merry. Wild cries broke out, and there was some clash of arms, but it was brief. The orcs busy about the walls were few and amazed, and they were quickly slain or driven off. Before the ruin of the north gate, in the Ramis, the king halted again. The first Aered drew up behind him, and about him on either side. Dernhelm kept close to the king, though Elfhelm's company was away on the right. Grimbold's men turned aside and passed round to a great gap in the wall further eastward. Merry peered from behind Dernhelm's back. Far away, maybe 10 miles or more, there was a great burning. But between it and the riders, lines of fire blazed in a vast crescent, at the nearest point less than a league distant. He could make out little more on the dark plain, and as yet neither saw any hope of morning nor felt any wind, changed or unchanged. Now silently the host of Rohan moved forward into the field of Gondor, pouring in slowly but steadily like the rising tide through breaches in a dike that men have thought secure. But the mind and will of the Black Captain were bent wholly on the falling city, and as yet no tidings came to him warning that his designs held any flaw. After a while the king led his men away somewhat eastward, to come between the fires of the siege and the outer fields. Still they were unchallenged, and still Theoden gave no signal. At last he halted once again. The city was now nearer. A smell of burning was in the air, and a very shadow of death. The horses were uneasy. Just one moment, I need to change pages here. Book of Lost Tales. Okay, perfect. That's part 1. But the king sat upon Snowmane, motionless, gazing upon the agony of Minas Tirith, as if stricken suddenly by anguish or by dread. He seemed to shrink down, cowed by age. Merry himself felt as if a great weight of horror and doubt had settled upon him. His heart beat slowly. Time seemed poised in uncertainty. They were too late. Too late was worse than never. Perhaps Theoden would quail, bow his old head, turn, slink away to hide in the hills. Then suddenly Merry felt it at last, beyond doubt. A change. Wind was in his face. Light was glimmering. Far, far away in the south, the clouds could be dimly seen as remote gray shapes, rolling up, drifting. Morning lay beyond them. But at that same moment there was a flash, as if lightning had sprung from the earth beneath the city. For a searing second it stood, dazzling, far off in black and white, its topmost tower like a glittering needle, and then as the darkness closed again, there came rolling over the fields a great boom. At that sound, the bent shape of the king sprang suddenly erect. Tall and proud he seemed again, and rising in his stirrups he cried in a loud voice, more clear than any there had ever heard a mortal man achieve before, "Arise, arise, riders of Theoden, fell deeds awake, fire and slaughter. Spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered, a sword day, a red day ere the sun rise. Ride now, ride now, ride to Gondor." With that he seized a great horn from Guthlaf his banner-bearer, and blew such a blast upon it that it burst asunder. And straightway all the horns in the host were lifted up in music, and the blowing of the horns of Rohan in that hour was like a storm upon the plain and a thunder in the mountains. Ride now, ride to Gondor. Suddenly the king cried to Snowmane, and the horse sprang away. Behind him his banner blew in the wind, white horse upon a field of green, but he outpaced it. After him thundered the knights of his house, but he was ever before them. Eomer rode there, the white horse tail of his helm floating in his speed, and the front of his first Eomer roared like a breaker foaming in the shore, but Theoden could not be overtaken. Fey he seemed, or the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins, and he was borne up on Snowmane like a god of old, even as Oroma the Great in the battle of the Valar when the world was young. His golden shield was uncovered, and lo, it shone like an image of the sun, and the grass flamed into green about the white feet of his steed. For morning came. Morning and a wind from the sea, and darkness was removed, and the hosts of Mordor wailed, and terror took them, and they fled and died, and the hoofs of wrath rode over them. And then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them, and the sound of their singing, that was fair and terrible, came even to the city. Oh, I love reading that part. Let me catch up on chat here. Let's see. Caleb, I don't know why that was, let's see. It was death. Yeah, let's allow that. Oh, another moderator just handled this. Okay. It's not a clickable link. Oh, I see. Yeah, you're gonna have to. It shows up as clickable on my end. Sit-ins for Sithis. Just you know what you see the PayPal address in the description, and it's also pinned. That's also my email address. Just send me an email asking for a Discord link, and I'll email it back to you when I get the chance. Very difficult to do everything from my phone right now, but I'm doing my best. If we donate here for the PC, would it come quickly or would it take longer than the GoFundMe? No, it shouldn't take too long. I mean, really, we have to. My friend Corin, she has to order the parts and put it together and then send it to me. I don't know exactly how long it takes, but it shouldn't take too long. All right, so Laurel sent a donation, and we're going to have to do a reading for Laurel in just a bit. From the Book of Lost Tales. Let's see, that would be this one, right? It is the Book of Lost Tales. Book of Lost Tales, I'm assuming part 1, yep. And the sun rises. What did they sing? Waterloo. I like that song, actually. You guys would probably be surprised at my taste in music because I like everything. If I gave you like a list of my favorite groups, you'd be like, they don't have much in common with each other. That's fine. No, it should be a clickable link. It doesn't look like you did anything wrong. I think that might be on YouTube's end there, why it's not clickable. Let me just get a drink of water here, and we'll. I'm going to put you guys down for a moment. And I will do Laurel's reading. I will, of course, be keeping you guys updated on every little thing, with the PC and everything. Look, I don't take time off. If you guys know me, I stream on Twitch every day. I write on Quora almost every day. I don't take time off. So this is really just unusual for me, and that's why I'm sitting here doing this. Not just because I need the money for the PC, but because I can't just sit around, I'm so disconnected from everything. So I'm looking forward to being able to jump back into everything. All right, now let's see. You said around page 29. Let me just put it down and get this, because this book is, I don't have the Book of Lost Tales as one volume. I have this giant tome here, which contains the Book of Lost Tales, parts 1 and 2, the Lays of Beleriand, the Shaping of Middle-earth, and the Lost Road and Other Writings. So it's a chonker, as the kids say. The Cottage of Lost Play, and you wanted it from around there. You want the poem, I see. I'm assuming, Laurel, that's what you're looking for, is the poem. Oh, this is difficult to, this is a very big book, so it's hard to... If I do it like this, that might work. So I have the book like here, and... All right. All right, so Laurel sent me money, and it was a very generous donation, and I thank you for that, Laurel. You are really a great friend. Matt actually sent me a little bit today too. I don't think that he's going to be here in chat today, but I'll certainly read something for him if he wants me to. Oh, and I did speak to both Matt and Sid about the Council of Tokens. So the plan is now. Okay, Sithis, I'll get that after the stream. I'll do that for you. The plan is now. We will not be able to do the Council of Token this month, but next month we're going to do a something unusual. Sid wants to do sort of a Thanksgiving theme episode, so we're going to try to do that as long as Matt agrees to it. And then in December we should be doing something really interesting where the three of us would be casting a new version of the Lord of the Rings, like if we were put in charge of it. So you want the poem, Laurel, right? Okay, let's do that. You and me in the cottage of lost play. You and me, we know that land, and often have been there, in the long old days, old nursery days, a dark child and a fair. Was it down the paths of firelight dreams, in winter cold and white, or in the blue spin twilit hours of little early tucked up beds in drowsy summer night, that you and I got lost in sleep and met each other there, your dark hair on your white nightgown, and mine was tangled fair? We wandered shyly hand in hand, or rollicked in the fairy sand, and gathered pearls and shells and pails, while all about the nightingales were singing in the trees. We dug for silver with our spades by little inland sparkling seas, then ran ashore through sleepy glades and down a warm and winding lane. We never never found again, between high whispering trees, the air was neither night or day, but faintly dark with softest light, when first there glimmered into sight the cottage of lost play. 'Twas builded very, very old, white and thatched with straws of gold, and pierced with peeping lattices that looked toward the sea, and our own children's garden plots were there, our own forget-me-nots, red daisies, cress and mustard, and blue anemophile. Oh, all the borders trimmed with box were full of favorite flowers of phlox, of larkspur, pinks, and hollyhocks, beneath a red May tree, and all the paths were full of shapes, of tumbling, happy, white-clad shapes, and with them you and me. And some had silver watering cans, and watered all their gowns, or sprayed each other, some laid plans to build them houses, fairy towns, or dwellings in the trees, and some were clambering on the roof, some crooning, lonely and aloof, and some were dancing fairy rings, and weaving pearly daisy strings, or chasing golden bees. But here and there a little pair with rosy cheeks and tangled hair debated quaint old childish things, and we were one of these. And why it was tomorrow came, and with his grey hand led us back, and why we never found the same old cottage or the magic track that leads between a silver sea and those old shores and gardens fair, where all things are that ever were, we know not, you and me. And I'm going to read the next bit, which is a shorter, more compact, and just overall better version of the same poem, which is now called The Little House of Lost Play, Mar Vanwa Tia Lieva. We knew that land once, you and I, and once we wandered there, in the long days now long gone by, a dark child and a fair. Was it on the paths of firelight, thought, in winter cold and white, or in the blue-spun twilight hours of little early tucked-up beds in drowsy summer night, that you and I in sleep went down to meet each other there, your dark hair on your white nightgown, and mine was tangled fair? We wandered shyly hand in hand, small footprints in the golden sand, and gathered pearls and shells and pails, while all about the nightingales were singing in the trees. We dug for silver with our spades, and caught the sparkle of the seas, then ran ashore to greenlit glades, and found the warm and winding lane. But now we cannot find again between tall whispering trees. The air was neither night nor day, as ever eve of gloaming light, when first there glimmered into sight the little house of play. New built it was, yet very old, white and thatched with straws of gold, and pierced with peeping lattices that looked toward the sea. And our own children's garden plots were there, our own forget-me-nots, red daisies, cress and mustard, and radishes for tea. There all the borders trimmed with box were filled with favourite flowers, with phlox, with lupins, pinks, and hollyhocks beneath a red May tree, and all the gardens full of folk that their own little language spoke, but not to you and me. For some had silver watering cans, and watered all their gowns, or sprayed each other. Some laid plans to build their houses little towns, and dwellings in the trees. And some were clambering on the roof, some crooning, lonely and aloof, some dancing round the fairy rings, all garlanded in daisy strings, while some upon their knees, before a little white-robed king, crowned with marigold, would sing their rhymes of long ago. But side by side a little pair, with heads together mingled hair, went walking to and fro, still hand in hand, and what they saw were waking far apart them led, that only we now know. There you have it, Laurel. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. There's more verses, the second verses and the third verses. I think. What do you think, Lowell? Do you want to hear more? I kind of like it. Which version of the? Before we go any further, actually, which version of the poem do you guys prefer? The first version, or the second one? The second, yeah, the second one's better, isn't it? I feel like the second one is more concise. It's better written. Um, let's see. This is the Book of Lost Tales, so it's some of Tolkien's very oldest writing. When he was just sort of like throwing everything against the wall and just sort of coming up with all these different ideas and whatnot. And if you read the stories in the Book of Lost Tales, whether it's part one or part two, it's just so interesting. There's a lot of references to fairies and gnomes, but when he talks about fairies and gnomes, he's really talking about elves. And he really thought, and this is where Tolkien made sort of an error, he really thought that when he wrote, for example, that Beren is an elf, and that Luthien is a fairy, and that Finrod is a gnome, that people would really understand what he meant. Was that they were all elves. Beren actually was an elf in the oldest version of the story, the Lay of Luthien, and that they were all elves and that they were just of different clans. And as a matter of fact, I have a book here that explains it pretty well, actually. Yes, makes you think of your childhood. If you notice there's something that, hey, Time Lord guy, there's something that, oh, Time Lord guy, can I ask you just, I'm not like admonishing you or anything, but I'm just going to ask you for a favor, because you send me a lot of questions on YouTube, which is perfectly fine, and I went over some of them in yesterday's stream, but I can tell that when you put the questions on, because for whatever reason, this is not your fault, but whatever reason, to submit those questions on YouTube, you have to use a mobile device. You can't do it on a computer. And if you could just not use speech to text, because it misunderstands you a lot. You're talking into it, and it's getting the words wrong. You can't. I'll talk about why Tolkien hated Disney, but let me make my point about gnomes and fairies in just and then I'll get to that. It's just because I noticed that you'll type or, like OR, and for whatever reason, or you'll say or and it'll type ARE, and I could usually understand what you're saying, but it's a little difficult sometimes, and it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that the speech to text technology really isn't there. So I have this book here, It's called The Ring of Words, Tolkien in the Oxford English Dictionary, which is by the authors Peter Gilliver, Jeremy Marshall, and Edmund Weiner. It's a really, really good book. And I want to read just like two little passages when we're talking about gnomes and fairies. Well, I'll start with fairy. We'll go alphabetically. Why not? Because Tolkien had a very specific idea of what was a fairy and what was a gnome, and he really thought that people would understand what he meant, and they didn't, so he had to change it. Fairy, as a noun more or less equivalent to elf, is a relatively modern word, hardly used until the Tudor period. The first quotation in the Oxford Dictionary, the only one before 1450, is significant. It is taken from a poet Gower, as he were a fairy. But this Gower did not say, he wrote, as he were of fairy, as if he came from fairy. Here Tolkien encapsulates the history of the word fairy. In origin, it literally meant the land of the fays. The three earliest senses of the word in the OED can be summarized as fairyland, the inhabitants of fairyland, and enchantment. It is only in the late 14th century that word is transferred from this collective meaning to that of an individual member of the fairy people, which soon became its normal use. For further discussion on fairyland, see fairy. So I'm not going to go into all of that, because it talks about the two different spellings and why he preferred one over the other. But let me go over to the entry for gnome. Yes, yes, because the Father Christmas Letters is the book you're talking about. I did a reading from it once for an episode of my show that was going to come out around Christmas. I thought that would be fun. Here's the short entry about gnomes, and you can see where Tolkien sort of made a big mistake in assuming that people would understand what he was meaning by the word gnome. In his earliest elvish tales, Tolkien used the word gnome for the second of the great elf kindreds, corresponding to the elvish word noldo, or its predecessor. He persisted with this use for a long time, believing, as Tom Shippey observes in The Road to Middle-earth, page 333, that his readers would understand this in the light of the Greek word nome, which is connected to gnosis, or knowledge. However, this erudite use of the word was always in danger of being undermined by association with nursery tales or with the absurd bearded and red-capped garden gnomes, probably introduced in or around the 1860s and widespread in Britain by the 1940s. It is just as well that he decided to replace it with the Elvish word. Even so, the language generally known as Sindarin was called Gnomish, even in some writings later than The Lord of the Rings. It goes on, but you can see that he thought, well, people will understand what I mean when I say gnome. And I think he made the same sort of, not a mistake in this instance, but he thought that people would understand what he meant when he said wizard. Um, because he was thinking of wizard as being derived from wise and not just somebody who is a user of magic. I think that's better explained in the text because he delineates between wizards and sorcerers, and he also admits that he doesn't use the term magic very consistently. But there you have it. Now, you Sithis, you wanted me to talk about why he hated Disney, and this is interesting. He said that the Disney Corporation would never get the rights to make any adaptations based on his work, and he hated Walt Disney. I believe the word that he used to describe Walt Disney as a person was buffoon. Although he might have said boob. It was one of those B words that means, just like a sort of a foolish, bumbling sort of oaf. And there is the story that people know of Tolkien with his friend Jack, who we would know as C.S. Lewis, going to see Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, just basically to razz on it and to, do their little, mystery science theater riff there, to hate watch it, as the kids say. Now, the reason that he hated Disney specifically was that they were pulling from a lot of the Germanic and French fairy tales that he was very familiar with, especially the Germanic fairy tales. And Snow White itself was a Germanic fairy tale. There's a French version as well, But he felt that they did something to a lot of these stories that we, you and me and whatever, would say that they made them child friendly. That they took out the darker or the more grisly aspects of these old tales. And Tolkien's argument was that that's sort of disrespectful to children, that they can handle these sort of things, and that these stories were written with children in mind, and a lot of them are very cautionary tales. Like Little Red Riding Hood is a perfect example of actually it's a cautionary tale telling girls to watch out for predators. So he thought that by sanitizing and rounding the edges, so to speak, that these sort of films were very disrespectful to what children were capable of handling. So that's why he didn't like Disney. That's why. Yeah, and we're just keeping it PG in the chat, please. It's not a super big deal, but just keep it PG. Oh, hey, Eric. My computer just stopped working. We're fundraising for a new computer right now. You were watching me playing Street Fighter Five. Thank you for coming by. I was having a lot of fun, but that is the only stream recently that didn't end abruptly with my computer completely crashing. And yesterday's stream it crashed during, and I haven't gotten the computer to run since. So we're raising funds for a new computer. We're pretty close to our goal actually. So hopefully we won't be down soon. I'd love to sit and play Street Fighter 5 for you again on, another Monday stream. But if you look at the description of the live as well as restoring the Realm of Runes, what do you call it? Pinned comment. You can see my PayPal address as well as you can see the GoFundMe. The GoFundMe should have the goal on there. We're closer than what it says because some people have sent money through PayPal. But generally speaking, I need about $1,000, and and that's because my friend has quoted me as saying that she'll be able to build the computer for 800. I've already bought one of the parts, you see, that's why it's so cheap. But I also need to make sure that she gets paid, and there are shipping costs involved as well. So they make your regional folklore PG for American audiences. You understand, Token? Yeah, what is your regional folklore that they've screwed with? We'll say screwed. That's a little more friendly, right? But yeah, no. Well, I prefer you don't say, even just saying F like that. It's just that we're trying to keep it. I don't want to get demonetized. That's all it is. No, thank you, Eric. And like I said, if you could, if anybody donates during a stream, whatever the amount, large amount, small amount, it all helps. I will do a reading from a token book of your choice. We have everything here, as you can see. We have it all, as well as this one here. So yeah, but okay. So yeah, there we go. So I'm sorry that I haven't managed to put it up. I was going to put up quizzes today, but I got busy with hooking up my bank account to the fundraiser and everything, and I was watching a film, and Snow White and Cinderella, and oh, so are you're Germanic then? Yeah, a lot of those stories. Okay, so it's funny is I actually like the Disney Little Mermaid, but it is nothing like the actual story. Now, Sithis. Now I don't need to ask. Well, yeah. Well, don't. I'm saying just don't say F. It's just like I said. I'm not looking to get demonetized. Just say screw. That's sort of that gets the point across. I'm not trying to be harsh or anything. I get it. When I'm streaming on Twitch, I curse a blue streak. It's just for YouTube. I prefer not to do that. Oh, The Hunchback of Notre Dame is awful. I hated that movie. I hated it. Now, I don't. I was going to ask if you're familiar with video games at all, but since your name has Sithis in it, I know you play the Elder Scrolls. So. Are you familiar with Dragon Quest? It's interesting, and that's why I wound up watching the Doctor Sleep film because I was talking about The Shining. which was a yeah, I know. I'm just look. I'm trying to keep a certain vibe here. Um, and I was talking about the film that Stanley Kubrick made in 1980 that um, I didn't like it. It wasn't that it was a bad film. I didn't like it because I felt it missed the point of the story, which was supposed to be about a man with a troubled past, being tormented by loneliness and isolation and spirits haunting him and bringing out the worst in him. And what we got was a story about a crazy man doing crazy things instead. So it sort of simplified things, you know. But if you're familiar with Dragon Quest, there is an entire section of the 11 Dragon Quest 11 that I felt was a take on The Little Mermaid, not the Disney film, but the original story. Cinderella, well, there's a lot of different versions of these. And the original Cinderella was absolutely positively French, but there are Germanic versions of a lot of the French fairy tales, and there are French versions of Germanic fairy tales. Perrault and the brothers Grimm would they were sort of in competition, and they would make versions of each other's stories. And of course there were other people who were writing fairy tales, but Tolkien's a big fan of fairy tales, and he would prefer if you make a cartoon based on a fairy tale, to keep it true to what it is. Um, Lion King is sort of a mishmash of there. It's a Japanese story which was called Kimba the White Lion. Disney denies that they based The Lion King on Kimba the White Lion in any way, shape, or form, but there are actually leaked images of an early version where Simba was albino, so you could tell that there was an inspiration there. And then it was also very, very closely based on Shakespeare's Hamlet, which I'm a big Shakespeare fan myself, so I did like The Lion King. I did like it. I do like some Disney movies. Well, more of the shorts. Like like the Donald Duck shorts and whatnot. Shakespeare, but there's like I said, there's a lot of Japanese folklore mashed up in the Lion King as well. You like the original Snow White, but you could see the issue that Tolkien had. Yeah, I mean it's not a terrible movie. It's just that like, we're allowed to disagree with Tolkien on things. We're allowed to disagree with him on things. We don't have to share his opinions. Like he for example, he loved mushrooms. I hate them. I think they're disgusting. I always tell people mushrooms are haunted. There's ghosts in them, then I won't eat anything that has ghosts in it. Of course, I'm joking, but I hate the way they look. I hate the way they smell. I hate their texture, and I certainly don't like the flavor. And Tolkien loved mushrooms. He said that he was pretty much a hobbit in his life, except for the height, which is interesting. It tells us a lot about the state of his feet, I suppose. But he said that he liked simple meals. He loved mushrooms. And you love mushroom. Nothing wrong with that. I just personally won't eat them, or anything that's touched them. You know, I can't do mushrooms. I can't do mushrooms. It's and it's interesting. I used to say it's sort of maybe it's because it's fungus, but that's not the case because I do like the blue cheese, which has mold in it. So it's not that. It's not that. Okay. All right, so yeah, we're really close to our goal. I'm gonna try and stream from my phone as much as I can. It's very uncomfortable and not certainly ideal, but I have to keep in touch with you guys and keep the channel going during the time that I don't have a computer because I certainly can't. I can write on my phone. I've done that. I don't prefer it. You can write on Quora, but I can't really make a good video of answering the questions and with the level of production that you guys have become accustomed to. He didn't like French food. Well, Tolkien is interesting. He is what we would call a proper Englishman, which means that he had a healthy dislike for anything French, which is interesting because he was fluent in the language. But the rivalry between England and France. People think it's really very, very serious, and it's really not all that serious. It's sort of like a football rivalry, you know? It's just companies, listen to me, two countries sort of thumbing their noses at each other, you know? Well, I told you that I would send you an email for the Discord when I wasn't after the stream, when I'm not live. I can't really, you see, all I have is a phone right now. I don't have a computer to send you an email with. So if I'm sending you an email, I'm not talking to you guys. So just, that's why I asked for an email, so it's something that I can address after the stream. Yeah, it's sort of just like they make fun of each other. You know, there was differences, extreme differences in the past that led to wars and things like that. But by Tolkien's time, you know, France and England were allies, had been allies for quite some time, and it was really just a bit of fun, just two countries just sort of making fun of each other and sort of a frenemy sort of thing. A little bit of frenemies, huh? Like the Netherlands and Germany. Yes, yes. Or actually, another good analog to that would be any of the Scandinavian countries. They all have this sort of memeish rivalry with each other, where they just sort of like poke fun at each other. I have a friend who's Swedish, and he would say these things like, "Imagine being Finnish," you know. He would just, or he would try to claim that Finland isn't real, that it's a fake place that doesn't exist, you know. And he's not being serious. That's just the way that Scandinavian people are, and it's just sort of, you know, the just all for fun. It's not meant to be serious, you know. Um, I should see now the Netherlands and Germany. That's interesting. I should ask my friend Arjen Lucassen if he had. See, he has a close friend from Germany, and you guys might. I asked about if any of you guys knew who Arjen Lucassen was yesterday, and nobody knew him, which is fine. He's only like slightly famous, but he has a very close friend from Germany who I'm willing to bet some of you have heard of. His name is Hansi Kirsch, and he is the singer in a band called Blind Guardian. And the reason that I say that you guys would know Blind Guardian is because they had a few more than a few songs based off of Tolkien's work. They had a song that was just called "The Lord of the Rings." There's actually two versions of it out there, but it was a pretty big hit in Europe. And they also had a song based on The Hobbit, and they did an entire album based off of the Silmarillion. It was called Nightfall in Middle Earth. So there you go. Yeah, but you know, European countries sort of like uh, bickering like that is really not all that serious, you know. And oh, you have, yeah, okay, yeah, that they have well, it's a Silmarillion album, but yeah. So yeah, Hansi, who's the singer, he's friends with Arjen Lucassen, is a friend of mine, and they you know, like I said, Arjen's Dutch, and he's specifically from the region of Holland, whereas Hansi's very, very German. So you know, it's just for fun. It's not anything serious. We do it in the United States too. You know, the states all make fun of each other. Like I have a friend who's from New Jersey, and I always make fun of her. You know, for you know, just the sort of the stereotypes from New Jersey and whatnot. But it's all in good fun. So I want to read for you guys here. I want to read for you guys. I know a donation hasn't come in since Laurel, and that's perfectly fine. But we got to do something. And I thought I might read a bit of Beowulf. What do you guys think of that? Laurel actually sent me this, by the way. I still have her note. It's in here. There it is. And that you see that pink blotch there. It doesn't come up too well, but that's actually a wax seal with the crest of Rohan on it. Matt got these wax seal making kits and these coins and sent it out to all of us. And I have the Shire is my realm, and Rohan is Laurel's realm. Sid has Rivendell. You know, Matt actually he took the one that was left over when everybody picked their realm, so he wound up with Mordor. What do I think of the animated Beowulf film that came out in 2007? No. No. I didn't like the animation. I thought it was a little too either just make it look like a cartoon or just get real actors. Don't do that weird. Yeah, I didn't enjoy the way it looked. It was too. There's a term for that. It's called the uncanny valley. Bee eater, exactly. Let's do a little Beowulf. Now, normally you don't just calmly read Beowulf. You bellow it. That's certainly the way that Tolkien would read it, whether he was translating it to modern English or whether he was reading it to his students in the original Middle English. He would bellow it, and it was said that his lecture hall at Oxford was more like a mead hall with the atmosphere, and he would come in and he would yell out a line from Beowulf, and his students were expected to yell back the next line, you know. But to save my throat, I'm not going to bellow. Let's do a bit of Beowulf. No, I need to get to the actual beginning, not the introduction. I'm going to put you guys down for a moment, so just enjoy looking at the ceiling briefly. This is not an ideal situation, but we're going to make the best of it. Lo, the glory of the kings of the people of the Spear Danes. In days of old we have heard tell how these princes did deeds of valor. Oft skyled Skeffing robbed the hosts of foemen. Many peoples of the seats where they drank their mead laid fear upon men. He who first was found forlorn, comfort, for that he lived to know. Mighty grew under heaven, throve in honor, until all that dwelt nigh about, over the sea where the whale rides, must hearken to him, and yield him tribute. A good king was he. To him was an heir afterwards born, a young child in his courts, whom God sent for the comforts of the people, perceiving the dire need which they long while endured aforetime without a prince. To him, therefore, the Lord of life, who rules in glory, granted honor among men. Beo was renowned. Far and wide his glory sprang, the heir of Skyle and Skedland. Thus doth a young man bring it to pass with good deed and gallant gifts, while he dwells in his father's bosom, that after in his age there cleave to him loyal knights of his table, and the people stand by him when war comes. By worthy deeds in every folk is a man ennobled. Then, as his allotted hour, Skyle the valiant passed into the keeping of the Lord, and to the flowing sea his dear comrades bore him, even as he himself had bidden them. While yet their prince, he ruled the Skildlings with his words. Beloved lord of the land, long was he master. There at the haven stood with ringed prow, ice hunting, eager to be gone, the prince's bark. They laid then there their beloved king, giver of rings, in the bosom of the ship, in glory by the mast. There were many precious things and treasures brought from regions far away, nor have I heard tell that men ever in more seemly wise arrayed about with weapons of war and harness of battle. On his lap lay treasures heaped, that now must go with him far into the dominion of the sea. With lesser gifts no whit did they adorn him, with treasures of that people, than did those in the beginning, sent him forth alone over the waves, a little child. Moreover, high above his head, they set a golden standard and gave him to ocean. Let the sea bear him. Sad was their heart and mourning in their soul. None can report with truth, nor lords in their halls, nor mighty men beneath the sky who receive that load. Then in the strongholds long was Beo of the Scaldings, beloved king of men, renowned among people. Elsewhere had the prince his father departed from his home, until thereafter he beat Helfdene the Nigh, who held the lordship while he lived, aged and fierce in war over the fair Scaldlings. To him were children foreborn in the world, in order named captains of the hosts, Herogar and Hrothgar and Hulga the Good, and a daughter, I have heard that was O'Neill's queen, dear consort of the warrior Skyfling. Thereafter was fortune in war vouchsafed to Hrothgar, and glory in battle, that the vassals of his own kindred hearkened willingly unto him, and the numbers of his young warriors grew to a mighty company of men. Then it came into his heart that he would command men to fashion a hall and a mansion, a mightier house for their mead drinking than the children of men had ever known, and there within would he apportion all things to young and old, such as God had granted him, save the people's land and the lives of men. Then I have heard that far and wide, to many a kindred on this middle earth, was that work proclaimed, the adorning of that dwelling of men. In a while swiftly among men it came to pass for him that it was all made ready, the greatest of houses and of halls. For it he devised the name of Heorot, even he whose word far and wide was law. His vow he belied not, the rings he dealt and treasure at the feast. The hall towered high, with horned gables wide, waiting the warring billows of destroying fire. The time was not far off that between father and daughter's spouse murderous hate in memory of a deadly feud should wake again. Yes, Time Lord guy, that is true. It is one of the few. See, the thing is, there's not a lot of that time period that survives today. I'm going to continue a little bit here. That was about 69 lines. We'll continue a bit more. Then the fierce spirit that abode in darkness grievously endured a time of torment, and that day after day he heard the din of revelry echoing in the hall. There was the sound of harp and the clear singing of the minstrel. There spake he that had knowledge to unfold from far-off days the first beginning of men, telling how the Almighty wrought the earth, a veil of bright loveliness that the waters encircle, how triumphant he set the radiance of the sun and moon as a light for the dwellers in the lands, and adorned the regions of the world with boughs and with leaves. Life too he devised for every kind that moves and lives. Even thus did the men of that company live in mirth and happiness, until one began to work deeds of wrong, a fiend of hell. Grendel was that grim creature called, the ill-famed haunter of the marches of the land, who kept the moors, the fastness of the fens, and, unhappy one, inhabited long while the troll-kind's home, for the Maker had prescribed him with the grace of Cain. That bloodshed, for that Cain slew Abel, was the eternal Lord avenged. No joy had he of that violent deed, but God drove him for that crime far from mankind. Of him all the evil broods were born, ogres and goblins and haunting shapes of hell, and the giants too that long time warred with God, for that he gave them their reward. Then went Grendel forth when night came to spy on that lofty house, to see how the ring-Danes after the ale-drinking had ordered their abode in it. And he found therein a lordly company. After their feasting, sleeping, sorrow they knew not, the unhappy fate of men. That accursed thing, ravenous and grim, swift was ready. 30 knights he seized upon their couch. Thence back he got him gloating over the prey, faring homeward with his glut of murder to seek his lairs. Thereafter at dawn, with the first light of day, was Grendel's strength in battle made plain to men. When the weeping and the feasting upraised a mighty cry at morn, the glorious king, their prince proven of old, joyless sat. His stout and valiant heart suffered and endured sorrow for his knights, when men had scanned the footprints of that foe. The demon cursed. Too bitter was that strife, too dire and weary to endure. Nor was it longer space than but one night ere he wrought again cruel murders more, and grieved not for them, the deeds of enmity and wrong, too deep was he therein. Thereafter not far to seek was the man, who elsewhere more remote sought him, his couch in a bed among his lesser chamber. Since now was manifested and declared thus truly to him, with taken plain the hatred of all that hall-keeper, hereafter he who escaped the foe kept him more distant and more safe. Even thus did one lord it against make war, alone against them all, until empty stood that best of houses. Long was the while, 12 winters' space, the Skadling's dear lord endured such anguish, and every woe and sorrow deep. So it was made known to men, and revealed to the children of mankind sadly in songs, that Grendel strove a while with Hrothgar, wrought hate and malice, evil deeds and enmity, for many a year, a strife unceasing, Truce would not be have with any men of the Danish host, nor would withhold his deadly cruelty, nor accept terms of payment. And there no cause had any of the counsellors to look for golden recompense from the slayer's hands. Nay, the fierce killer pursued them still, both knights and young, a dark shallow of death, lurking, lying in wait. In long night keeping the misty moors, men know not whither sorcerers of hell in their wanderings roam. All right. There's 130 lines of Tolkien's translation of Beowulf. And it's really good. And what's interesting is this wasn't published during his lifetime. And, well, I haven't sent it yet. I told you I would do that after the stream, right? After the stream. If I'm still streaming, I haven't said. I promise I'll send you a Discord link. But this was published, does it have a publication date on it? He did this in the 50s, I think. This was published in 2014. And, most of his work was published after his death. That's just a stone cold fact. But, you're on a different device. Walter, could you get a Discord link, please, and try it again? See if Sithis can get into the Discord. But his translations of this classic literature and poetry, whether it's Beowulf or Selig-Spell or The Green Knight or what was that other one he did? Pearl, Sir Orfeo. Those translations weren't considered good at that time. And the reason is because scholars of the time felt that he was being too creative and that he was changing too much. And really what he was doing was he was not transliterating and just, say, well, this word in Middle English, or in the case of, Beowulf in Old English, means this, and then we'll sort of just make it make sense and just tell the story. But he wanted it to retain the poetry that it had in the original text, whether it was Old English or Middle English. And especially you see it in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which, by the way, the movie version of that, way better than the Beowulf movie. Not even close. But, that one was really cool because he managed to keep the triple alliteration that was very common in Middle English. And there's one particular, I have Sir Gawain and the Green Knight here. There's one particular part near the very beginning. And it's pretty much right when the Green Knight makes his first appearance at King Arthur's feast, his New Year. Well, I think it was a Christmas feast, actually. Oop. You can't click it either? That's strange that you can't click it. Can you copy paste it, perhaps? But like I said, I'll manage to send you that email at some point. I promise. It's just I don't know why you can't click it. It looks clickable on my end, but that's what you're doing. Well, I'll send you I'll send it to you an email. But there was there's a part here that I'm very, very familiar with the Middle English. And his word choice is interesting. And it was criticized at the time because it wasn't the obvious word choice. Here it is. It wasn't the obvious word choice he would go with. Now here it is as Tolkien translated. Now of their service I will say nothing more, for you are all well aware that no want would there be. Another noise that was new drew near on a sudden, so that their lord might have leave at last to take food. For hardly had the music but a moment ceased, and the first course in the court, as was custom, been served, when there passed through the portals a perilous horseman, the mightiest in Middle-earth in measure of height, from his gorge to his girdle so great and so square,
and his loins and his limbs so long and so huge that half a troll upon earth I trow that he was, but the largest man alive, at least I declare him, and yet the seemliest for his size that could sit on a horse. For though in back and in breast his body was grim, both his paunch and his waist were properly slight, and all his features followed his fashion so gay in mode, for at last the hue men gaped aghast in his face and form that showed. As a fey man fell he passed, and green all over glowed. So what you see is at the beginning of the stanza, it's the seventh stanza in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, you see double alliteration. And then in the middle, he switches to triple alliteration, and then he reverts to double alliteration at the end of the stanza. And that's the way it was done in Middle English. Like in the very first line, now of their service I will say nothing more. So there's a double S, service and say. And then the next line, for you are all well aware that no want would there be. So we have want and would, and also well, so that's actually already triple alliteration. Another noise that was new drew near on a sudden. Now we have triple alliteration, noise, new, and near. So that their lord might have leave at last to take food. Lord, leave, and last. So it goes on like that. I'm not going to go through every single line and point that out. But the interesting here is there passed through the portals a perilous horseman. Past, perilous, and portals. And if you read that part in Middle English, there's an interesting word which is Awlig. It would be spelled Awligh. And Awlig means to inspire awe, or to cause someone to be filled with awe. And the obvious word choice there for translating that into modern English would be either awful or awesome, depending on the vibe that you're looking for. So, but Tolkien went with perilous because he had changed other words around to modern English to come up with portal and to come up with past. So he made an unusual choice of not using the word awesome or the word awful, which seems a very obvious choice to translate Awlig. But instead, he chose perilous because he wanted it to still be a poem in the style that it was written in. Why would see now? Another moderator just handled. Okay, yeah, I don't know why that was held there. Coyote said preferred protocol of the professional pickpockets, pilfer, purloin, and then poison. I don't know quite why that was hidden there. That was a strange little thing. But there you have it. There is a little Sir Gawain and the Green Knight for you guys. Which, by the way, highly recommend this book. Highly recommend the film version. It's not specifically based on Tolkien's translation, but it was a really good movie. It was a really good movie. Uh, I forget who was in it. I don't think it was a lot of famous people, though. But there you go. Ah, okay. Yeah, Walter got to it before I could, which is good. Walter's the MVP today. I need to drink some water. Where is my water bottle? We're not going to be going for very very long today. It's very uncomfortable to be here sitting in this position and not to be in a chair. I need that lumbar support, but I also can't just not stream to you guys at all. Let's talk about Council of Token. What I was planning for my special episode that we're gonna do in December, because we did a special episode. It was actually meant to be in June, but we wound up doing it in July. Um, yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead. If you have questions, go ahead. Put them right in the chat. Um, and that was Sid's special episode, which was the one where we examined
the part in the Fellowship of the Ring that had to do with the Pass of Carathras and the storm that came and prevented them from taking the Pass of Carathras, which of course led to them taking the Mines of Moria, you know. Hey Gray, how's it going? But and we each had our take on that, and that was a pretty good show. My special, what I want to do is I want to say, well, let's pretend that they're making another film series version of the Lord of the Rings. Uh, 6 films instead of 3, which is really what it should have been, but you take what we can get. And let's say that this put me and Matt and Sid in charge of casting, and we can cast whoever we want. So, in our dream version of the Lord of the Rings, who would we have play, Frodo, or who would we have play Gandalf, or this and that and the other, and that's a show that we're going to do in December. But I want to open it up to you guys in the chat just a little bit, and just ask if you had any ideas for like, let's say for Gandalf or for whoever, of an actor that you always wanted to see play a particular character. Let's see what this says. What would happen if an elf, Maya, or Valar is actually plural, drank the sap of the 2 trees, given what we know about Ungoliant and her consumption of the sap? It's interesting. I think that the way that it was described. Let's break out the book here. We have to examine, to really answer this question. We have to examine the actual passage. So I'm going to put you guys down on my knee briefly while I go to that part. Let's see. The coming of the elves, Thingol and Melian, Silmarils and the unrest of Noldor. Here we are. Here we have it. Glorfindel. Who would you like to play Glorfindel? I have an answer for that. I don't know the man's name, but I could tell you exactly who I would want to play Glorfindel. But who would you like to play Glorfindel? Chapter 8 of the Darkening of Valinor. Now I want to get to the exact part where the sap. Here it is. It is told that even as Feanor and Fingolfin stood before Manwë, there came the mingling of the lights, when both trees were shining, and the silent city of Valmar was filled with the radiance of silver and gold. And in that very hour Melkor and Ungoliant came hastening over the fields of Valinor, as the shadow of a black cloud upon the wind fleets over the sunlit earth. And they came before the green mound Azolahar. Then the unlight of Ungoliant rose up even to the roots of the trees, and Melkor sprang upon the mound, and with his black spear he smote each tree to its core, wounding them deep, and their sap poured forth as if it were their blood, and was spilled upon the ground. But Ungoliant sucked it up, and going then from tree to tree, she set her black beak into the wounds till they were drained, and the poison of death that was in her went into their tissues and withered them root, branch, and leaf, and they died. And still she thirsted, and going to the wells of Varda, she drank them dry, but Ungoliant belched forth black vapors as she drank, and swelled to a shape so vast and hideous that Melkor was afraid. So, it doesn't describe much about the sap. But what we have to understand is these are very, very large trees. And we're to understand that the moon is a flower of Telperion, and the sun is a fruit of Laurelin. And from that, and the fact that these trees light the entirety of the Undying Lands. They're huge.
So, an elf or one of the Valar or one of the Maiar to drink the sap, I mean, they would have to get through it. And I would question actually why would they be drinking the sap. I have always sort of imagined the sap of the two trees as being like liquid light. There's nothing in the passage that explicitly says that. It just says there's sap that flows out like blood, and that Ungoliant drank it all from both of the trees, and that she was still thirsty, so she drank up all the water in the basin, which was like a big lake that she drank up, and the trees died. And then, her and Melkor leave, and they go to Middle Earth, and Feanor, all that stuff happens. Melkor, they start calling him Morgoth at this point. But anyway, I've always imagined it being like pure light pouring out of them. And I think that what's really interesting and the reason I think that is because of the nature of Ungoliant, as far as we know, the nature of Ungoliant, uh, that she consumes light, that she is taking in the light, and then it says that she's belching forth the black vapors, the unlight, as this is happening. So what I'm getting from this scene is that she's drinking up the light of the trees and then belching forth the unlight, the darkness that comes from her. So what I would say is that this is something that nobody else would really be capable of actually doing. Now, you might, and this answers a question that a lot of people may have. Why does Melkor need her? Why can't he destroy the trees on his own? He has this big spear that he could shove into each tree and make them bleed out their sap. But that apparently would not be enough. That would not be enough to destroy the two trees, because if it would be enough, he would have done it on his own, because he wouldn't deal with Ungoliant unless he absolutely had to, and he had to basically bribe her and threaten her. Both of those things he did to get her to agree to do this. She was somebody who worked for him in the past. She was in his service, and then she decided to become, and the exact phrase that Tolkien used was the mistress of her own lust. And what that essentially means when he says the mistress of her own lust is basically that she didn't want a boss. She wanted to be self employed. She wanted to work for herself. She wanted to do things for her own needs and her own desires. Hey, Alice. And not to work for somebody else's goals. So to get Ungoliant to go along with this, he had to threaten her to get her to even talk to him, and then he had to bribe her, which turned out to be a lie. He didn't give her what he promised that he would give her, because he is a liar. He is literally Satan. There's no getting around that. So you would question, why does he really need her to destroy the trees? Isn't he capable of doing that himself? So from the fact that he gets this giant spider demon to come with him and to do this deed with him, tells us that he is incapable of doing it on his own. Because if he could do it on his own, then he would do it on his own. Or if he knew anybody that could help him, like Sauron, like the Balrogs, then he would try to get them there to do that. Now, it is possible that the reason that he picked Ungoliant specifically was because Manwë had a hard time seeing her. But he timed this to be during their big feast, and at a time that he knew that Feanor and Fingolfin would be having this sort of like this argument, and that Manwë was going to be focused on that anyway. So like I said, drinking the sap, I think, is something that really only Ungoliant could do, because it's not really. I don't think it's really a liquid. I think it's light.
like liquid light. So I don't like. I mean, I would question that. Why would an elf do that, or why would a Vala do that, or a Maya do that? But just to answer the question plainly and simply, I don't think it would be possible. Is what I'm getting at. Let me catch up on chat a little bit here. Yeah. So I don't yeah I don't think they would self combust or get powers. I think that like honestly it just being exposed to it might actually it probably would kill an elf. It would probably just burn their body and they would go to Mandos. The Valar would be fine. The Maiar would be fine, but I don't think they would be capable of actually consuming it because she doesn't just consume it, she consumes the light and changes it into darkness, and all in one, one big motion. So I think that's why Melkor needed her. Did you have a good time, Alice? Yeah. So I think that would be my particular answer. You feel like Morgoth is a lord of war and Sauron is a lord of lies. I think they're both lords of lies. I think that Morgoth is he you could call him a lord of war, but he's lazy. He doesn't actually do much himself. He didn't fight Feanor. He had the Balrogs do that for him. The only reason that he fought Fingolfin was because he started to think that maybe all these creatures, these orcs and trolls and Balrogs and everything, would start to think that he was a coward if he didn't fight Fingolfin. And of course, he got humiliated there. He's the most powerful being in the world. There's no really denying that. He's the second most powerful being in the entire universe. And then when Tolkis and Orome come looking for a fight, he cowers, and he's unvaliant in battle. So I think he's more of a deceiver than you would think because he deceived Ungoliant, didn't he? He got her to agree to enter into his service yet again, saying that I will feed you as much as you want from both hands. And then she starts to say, hey, wait a minute, you're only feeding me from one hand. I want what's in your other hand, which was the Silmarils. And he said, no, you've had enough. That's it. You wonder what the favorite food of the Valar were. I bet Oroma's was the kind of arrow. It's interesting. I think that if you look at the Book of Lost Tales, there is sort of almost like an early version of Lembas. It's called Lempa, and it was said that the gods and the elves ate the Lempa to keep themselves young, even though they were immortal. They were constantly aging, and they would eat the Lempa to become young again. So that was probably, some kind of bread like that. But his deceiving inflict, he almost lost his own life. If not, well, absolutely, because he didn't know what was really going to happen beyond that. He didn't know that, because if you think about this, all he did was thrust a big spear into some trees. Now, I'm sure that that's not the easiest thing to do, especially considering the size of the trees. And it's a feat of great strength to thrust a spear all the way. You bet Iro loves mushrooms. I think Iro loves everything. um, to thrust a spear all the way into a tree so that it's the sap from its heart would come out like that. But what I think here is it weakened him. So just the act of doing that made Morgoth very tired and very weak, and Ungoliant became very, very powerful in that moment, and she was a real threat to Morgoth. So we could question why, perhaps because it was such an evil act, and because he was a Vala, and maybe that's why it weakened him. But yeah, just doing that made him weak. So yeah, there you have it. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to get comfortable here. Like I said, we're not going to go full length of time today here, but you know, what time is it right now? Oh, it's almost 9. So maybe we'll go to 9:30. That would be a good sort of thing. But yeah, and Alice, did you have a good time? And don't worry, I know you were a little bit late, but Walter's been keeping it down here. Siddons for Sithis was having a real hard time with the Discord link. Apparently, on his end, it wasn't showing up as clickable.
But he supposedly sent me an email, and I'll check that afterwards, and I'll email him a link because that's probably the best I can do. For whatever reason, the link is not working. It's not like showing up as an actual link. I don't know why that would be because it certainly looks correct. Uh, it's got the HTTPS and it's blue. I don't know. That's just one of those strange things. I mean, let's agree to blame that on YouTube, huh? Let's agree to say that that's YouTube's fault for doing that. You know. All right. Maybe we'll do maybe one more little reading before we call it a night. What do you guys think? Does anybody have any good ideas for what we could make our final reading? Unless there's a donation, I'll do another one. But it's probably your device or YouTube. I think it's YouTube. I think it's YouTube. I don't think it's your device. Like, what are you using? Are you using a phone or a tablet or like what? Are you... Bilbo's speech. Oh yes, you mentioned that earlier. What about the five guardians for the read? Oh, that's not. You know what? That's only a sentence. There's nothing there. It just says that there were five guardians. Well, there were really six because Melian was yeah. There's no reason that a phone and iPad couldn't handle like. There's not a lot there. If you have the Nature of Middle Earth, which I actually don't have a physical copy of, I would have to read from my digital copy, which is on my computer, so I can't do that for you right now. But yeah, it just mentions their names, and I think I talked about this in the most recent episode of my question and answer show. But yeah, we'll go to Unexpected Party and we'll read Bilbo's speech. I did a little bit of this yesterday, but not the whole thing. So why not? Here's the Fellowship of the Ring. I'm going to put you guys down while I get to the right page. What is this message that pops up there? Oh, it's just let me know that I can't go into landscape mode. Long expected party. Gonna get to the right part of it though. Here we are. Okay, we're back. That is the signal for supper, said Bilbo. The pain and alarm vanished at once, and the prostrate hobbits leaped to their feet. There was a splendid supper for everyone. For everyone, that is, except those invited to the special family dinner party. This was held in the great pavilion with the tree. The invitations were limited to 12 dozen, a number also called by the hobbits one gross, though the word was not considered proper to use of people, and the guests were selected from all the families to which Bilbo and Frodo were related, with the addition of a few special unrelated friends such as Gandalf. Many young hobbits were included and present by parental permission, for hobbits were easygoing with their children in the matter of sitting up late, especially when there was a chance of getting them a free meal. Bringing up young hobbits took a lot of provender. There were many Bagginses and Boffins, but also many Tooks and Brandybucks. There were various Grubbs, relation of Bilbo Baggins's grandmother, and various Chubbs, connections of his Took grandfather, and a selection of Burrowses, Bolgers, Bracegirdles, Brockhouses, Goodbodies, Hornblowers, and Proudfoots. Some of these were only very distantly connected with Bilbo, and some had hardly ever been in Hobbiton before, as they lived in remote corners of the Shire. The Sackville Bagginses were not forgotten. Otho and his wife Lobelia were present. They disliked Bilbo and detested Frodo, but so magnificent was the invitation card written in golden ink that they had felt it was impossible to refuse. Besides, their cousin Bilbo had been specializing in food for many years, and his table had a high reputation. Oh, well, you don't need to have the Discord app. You can join it just on a browser. It's better to have the app, but you could get on there without having the program. All the 144 guests expected a pleasant feast, though they rather dreaded the after-dinner speech of their host, inevitable item. He was liable to drag in... Sorry about that. I'm just trying to get comfortable here. Bits of what he called poetry, and sometimes after a glass or two would allude to the absurd adventures of his mysterious journey. The guests were not disappointed. They had a very pleasant feast. In fact, an engrossing entertainment, rich, abundant, varied, and prolonged. The purchase of provisions fell almost to nothing throughout the district in the ensuing week, but as Bilbo's catering had depleted the stocks of most of the stores, cellars, and warehouses for miles around, that did not matter much. After the feast, more or less, came the speech. Most of the company were, however, now in a tolerant mood, at that delightful stage which they called filling up the corners. They were sipping their favorite drinks and nibbling at their favorite dainties, and their fears were forgotten. They were prepared to listen to anything and to cheer at every full stop. "My dear people," began Bilbo, rising in his place. "Hear, hear, hear," they shouted, and kept on repeating it in chorus, seeming reluctant to follow their own advice. Bilbo left his place and went and stood on a chair under the illuminated tree. The light of the lanterns fell on his beaming face. The golden buttons shone on his embroidered silk waistcoat. They could all see him standing, waving one hand in the air. The other was in his trouser pocket. "My dear Bagginses and Boffins," he began again, "and my dear Tooks and Brandybucks and Grubbs and Chubbs and Burrowses and Hornblowers and Bulgers, Bracegirdles, Goodbodies, Brockhouses, and Proudfoots." "Proud feet!" shouted an elderly hobbit from the back of the pavilion. His name, of course, was Proudfoot, and well merited. His feet were large, exceptionally furry, and both were on the table. "Proudfoots," repeated Bilbo. "Oh, so my good Sackville Bagginses that I welcome back at last to Bag End. Today is my 111th birthday. I am 111 today." "Hooray, hooray, many happy returns," they shouted, and they hammered joyously on the tables. Bilbo was doing splendidly. This was the sort of stuff they liked. Short and obvious. "I hope you're all enjoying yourselves as much as I am." Deafening cheers, cries of yes and no, noises of trumpets and horns, pipes and flutes and other musical instruments. There were, as had been said, many young hobbits present. Hundreds of musical crackers had been pulled. Most of them bore the mark of Dale on them, which did not convey much to most of the hobbits, but they all agreed they were marvelous crackers. They contained instruments, small but all perfect make and enchanting tones. Indeed, in one corner, some of the young Tooks and Brandybucks, supposing Uncle Bilbo to have finished, since he had plainly said all that was necessary, now got up an impromptu orchestra and began a merry dance tune. Master Everard Took and Miss Melilot Brandybuck got on a table and with bells in their hands began to dance the Springle Ring, a pretty dance, but rather vigorous. But Bilbo had not finished. Seizing a horn from a youngster nearby, he blew 3 loud hoots. The noise subsided. "I shall not keep you long," he cried. Cheers from all the assembly. "I have called you all together for a purpose." Something in the way he said this made an impression. There was almost silence, and 1 or 2 of the Tooks pricked up their ears. "Indeed, for 3 purposes. First of all, to tell you that I am immensely fond of you all, and that 11 years is too short a time to live among such excellent and admirable hobbits." Tremendous outburst in approval. "I don't know half of you as well as I should like, and I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve." This was unexpected and rather difficult. There was some scattered clapping, but most of them were trying to work it out and see if it came to a compliment. "Secondly, to celebrate my birthday." Cheers again. "I should say our birthday, for it is, of course, also the birthday of my heir and nephew, Frodo. He comes of age and into his inheritance today." Some perfunctory clapping by the elders, and some loud shouts of "Frodo, Frodo, jolly old Frodo," from the juniors. The Sackville Bagginses scowled and wondered what was meant by coming into his inheritance. "Together, we score 144. Your numbers were chosen to fit this remarkable total. 1 gross, if I may use the expression." No cheers. This was ridiculous. Many of the guests, and especially the Sackville Bagginses, were insulted, feeling sure they had only been asked to fill up the required number like goods in a package. 1 gross indeed. Vulgar expression. It is also, if I may be allowed to refer to ancient history, the anniversary of my arrival by barrel at Esgaroth on the Long Lake, though the fact that it was my birthday slipped my memory on that occasion. I was only 51 then, and birthdays did not seem so important. The banquet was very splendid, however, though I had a very bad cold at the time, I remember, and could only say "thank you very much." I now repeat it more correctly. Thank you very much for coming to my little party. Obstinate silence. They all feared that a song or some poetry was now imminent, and they were getting bored. Why couldn't he stop talking and let them drink his health? But Bilbo did not sing or recite.
He paused for a moment. "Thirdly and finally," he said, "I wish to make an announcement." He spoke this last word so loudly and suddenly that everyone sat up who still could. "I regret to announce that, though, as I said, 11 years is far too short a time to spend among you. This is the end. I am going. I am leaving now. Goodbye." And then, he puts the ring on, and that's that's. They don't know what the heck goes on. Gandalf makes a flash, and yeah. Why did you delete that, Walter? There was nothing wrong with that. There's just um. So there you have it. I made an observation while I was reading that, and now I don't know. I think it might be just blown out of my head there about something. Oh dear, what was it? Yeah, there was nothing wrong with that. It was some sort of observation that I had made. I do love that passage because it's constantly telling you how everybody is reacting and what the emotions in the room. Oh, I just remembered. So he mentions everyone sat up who still could, and that's really interesting. It reminds me of the invitation that Tolkien sent out for, I believe it was Christopher's 21st birthday party, and he sent out this invitation, and it had this small lettering on the bottom that said, "Oh, what are you having for breakfast? You can't mention breakfast without telling me what you're having." It said something like, "Carriages at dusk, wheelbarrows at midnight, hearses at dawn," something like that. And it was just, like the Tolkien's just letting you know this was going to be this really raucous party, and then people were going to be, flat on their backs, if not outright dead, by the time the sun rises. And Tolkien had a very strange sense of humor for somebody that you might assume to be very, very stiff and formal, and he was anything but stiff and formal. I mean, this is a guy who would chase his neighbors around with an axe while screaming, at the top of his head, and that was his idea of a prank, just running at his neighbors with an axe. While dressed as some sort of Saxon warrior. Tolkien and Lewis once showed up to a party dressed as polar bears. They were not. It was not a costume ball. They weren't supposed to be dressed up as anything. Scrambled eggs and bacon is classic, and I have to assume, since I think you told me if you're from Europe, that the scrambled eggs are going to be actually good. They're not going to be all dried out and the sort of chopped omelet that a lot of American restaurants refer to as scrambled eggs. They say if you ruin an omelet, you've made scrambled eggs. Not really. No, that's not really the case. Okay. Well, I think we're going to stop here, guys. I thank you for everyone that came by and for the donations that came in, especially for Laurel, who left a very generous donation. I didn't want to go the full distance that I would normally go because I'm not sitting in my chair with all the comforts and everything. And also, I don't have like a whole setup where I could put a screen up to say, "Hey, I'll be right back," as I have to go to the bathroom. So, that's something you don't really hear about much in The Lord of the Rings, but you have to assume they do that. Your partner broke up with you and said the rapture would come for you soon? You're going to be okay. You feel nauseous. I'm sorry that you had a breakup. It seems like a strange sort of thing to say to somebody when you're breaking up with them. Well, don't worry. You're going to heaven. It's like, or maybe they don't think that rapture's a good thing. I don't know. That's strange. But I'm going to wish everybody a good night and thank you for the all the well wishes, and thank you for the donations that have come through. Once again, both in the description of this live stream, which if you're watching it later, it's a video, and also in the pinned comment from Walter, Restoring the Realm of Ruin. There is a link to my PayPal, and there is a link to my GoFundMe. We're very close to the goal. I think I'm going to keep you guys apprised of the situation. And hopefully we'll be back in business very soon. I'm sort of considering myself on a semi vacation here because I can't really work properly like without a PC. But I'm trying my best. I mean, I did this live stream for well for nearly 2 hours there. Now here's the thing: I don't quite know how to end a live stream on the. Oh, there's all this. That's really interesting. All these features and stuff. I think I just hit the X. So I'm saying goodnight now, and I'm going to hope to end the stream properly. Let's see if I could figure that out. Okay, that is how we do it. So all I have to do is hit OK. So I'll see you guys next time. Tomorrow I will try to do some sort of stream from my phone as well, probably in the afternoon, probably a shorter one like this. Um, just because all right, what else am I going to do, right? I'll see you guys. Have a good night.